Welcome to my November Confident English Spotlight lesson. This month, I'm interviewing Anne-Laure, who we're going to learn much more about in just a moment. But before I get started interviewing Anne-Laure, just a reminder that in 2018, every month I'm interviewing a woman in the Confident English community. It's my opportunity to spotlight someone in the community who's done something really interesting, started a new job, overcome challenges, maybe moved to a new country, or they're just doing something interesting, maybe some volunteer work. And this month, I'm excited to interview Anne-Laure. So Anne-Laure, welcome, and thank you so much for doing this interview with me today. I'm really excited to hear from you. And will you get started by telling us a little bit about where you're from and something that you love about your city?
Okay. Well, first, thank you very much for having me today. It's very pleasure to share that insight with all the members of the community. So to answer your question very quickly, so I'm from east of France, especially Metz. I don't know if someone ever heard from that city, but I did my studies in Marseille, east of France, and then I spent the last 3 years in Paris. Mm-hmm. So I think I would share with you an insight from Marseille because I consider it more than my hometown rather than Metz or Paris, I think. And I'll give you a little secret that I love doing in Marseille. It's after work, or if you are very tired after work, there's a little place called L'Anse de Malmousse. It's a little hidden calanque, and you can just rest there in front of the sea, and that's just a magic moment. Yeah. So that's something very great about Marseille. You have the sea right at your door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Marseille. It's one of my favorite cities, definitely, because of the sea and it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you're from Metz, lived in Marseille and Paris, but a year ago you moved to New York City. What has that transition been like for you?
Wow, it was a huge transition in my life, actually. That was the biggest move I've done so far. And what I must recognize, that was not the easiest thing I've done in my life because of all the visa thing, the research of an apartment that is very difficult in New York. And it took me, I think I can say right now that it took me a year long to be very comfortable and to live in New York. Because it's very hard to get some friends here and to get along with people and to have strong relationship. And for now, I just have French friends because, like most of the member know, maybe if they live in the US, that's very difficult to have a deep relationship with American people, especially if you are an expatriate. Mm-hmm. So I feel really better now, but it was not an easy path.
In my experience, I found that typically 6 months to a year is how long it takes to really feel adjusted and start feeling normal in a new place, and then to start building those relationships that you really want. It is a real challenge.
Yeah. I didn't think that was true when people told me that a year before, but I just realized that that was really true.
Right, absolutely. Is there anything that has surprised you about yourself, or anything that you've learned about yourself in this last year with all of those challenges?
Not really new. I just that just confirmed me that I could just stand for myself nearly everywhere, and I could stand for myself alone. Mm-hmm. So especially here in New York, I wouldn't say that's an easy city to live. Mm-hmm. So and the second thing I realized is that France is a great country, I think. Whatever the current news about fiscal fraud and strikes, but France really helps you to realize your project I think. And I think that's very important. And that's much more difficult here, I think, in another way.
Mm-hmm. How so? Can you explain a little bit more how they're different or why it's easier in France to do that?
Because in France, you have a lot of facilities. And if you just quit your job, you have help from the States. Mm-hmm. So that makes it very easy to start a new project, to start a company. Mm-hmm. But maybe here in the US, you don't have these facilities, but it's easier to people believe in you more than in France, I think. And it's easier to get to people that could help you. So there's advantages and drawbacks in both countries, but if you want to not start a startup like most of people do in France, but I could have a project, for example, for writing, and you don't earn money at the beginning. If you're a writer, it's much difficult in the US if you don't have those facilities, those public facilities.
Right, absolutely. That's an interesting point that I don't think people really pay attention to or notice very often between the US and France. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you do. So what is your work history or background, and what do you like about your work?
So right now, for a year and a half, I've been a product manager here in the US at French Founders. It's a French startup, and it's kind of a LinkedIn, a business club for French entrepreneurs and investors. And I manage all the strategy of the product. It's a digital product with a website and an application. Mm-hmm. And before that, I was a consultant in a small company. We were about 20 people, and I worked with big investment banking groups and something like that, much more corporate. Mm-hmm. So working in a startup, it's much different and much challenging than working in a corporate, because you really see your concrete action and you really see the impact of your actions on the users, especially because I have quite a lot of responsibilities and I can make decisions that will have an impact on my team and on my users. So that comes as very interesting for me. Right. But it comes also with less security and most difficulties to organize, and you have a lot of work, and sometimes you do something that's not related at all to your job, and that makes difference.
Right. I think that's maybe what's enjoyable but also challenging about a startup. We say in English that you wear many different hats. You're constantly doing so many different jobs that you probably wouldn't need to do if you were working in a large corporation. So it has its plus and minus for sure. What do you think has helped you be successful in your career? Because you've been successful as a freelancer, a consultant, and now you're working for an interesting startup. What has helped you make those changes successfully?
I think always remember what I'm good at and what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And that's all leads me to switch a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And for my concrete job, my daily job, I think my ability to listen to people, to develop my empathy towards the way people live and think, it's very important for my job as a product manager. Mm-hmm. And also what I learned during my time as a consultant was how to ask the right question. Mm-hmm. And how to go deep into the people's needs with the 5 whys, because every time people tell you that they need something, very often that's not what they need, because that's not the real problem. You have to go deep into what they think and how they live to really understand them, and to say that, this is not how I see things. I think the solution may rather be that instead of that.
Mm-hmm. Do you like that process of sort of discovering what the right question is and the real problem?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. It's a lot of exploration. It's a lot of empathy, and I think that's the best part of my job.
Yeah, that's great. How often do you use English in your job or in your current life?
Rather in my current life, because in my job I barely don't use English
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because I work with French people for French people, so that's totally French.
Right.
And I rather use it for my personal life,
Mm-hmm.
but I really wish I would use English more in the future,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that if you are in the US, that should be worth it to be here, and talking and speaking English is really part of the travel, so
Right.
part of the trip. So yeah.
Yeah. You've definitely worked really hard over the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years on improving your English. And talk a little bit about why that has been important to you and what has helped you overcome some of the initial challenges that you had.
Well, that came very important for me because first, professionally, even if I don't use it in my daily work,
Mm-hmm.
I really actually all my researches, all the talk I go and to listen every, and my maybe my future switch in an American company, I must have to talk in English fluently, and I have to express my ideas and convince people and present things and presentation in
Right.
front of a group of people. So that's come very important for me.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, that's maybe even most important because both my boyfriend and my best friend are fluent in English. Both are part American.
Mm-hmm.
So all their friends are English speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very important to be fluent in the small talk when I talk and see them, and to not feeling be a part in the group, and being able to just be natural,
Right.
just be in the group.
Right. What do you think has helped you start to make those changes and make that process a little easier?
Um, that's very hard to say. First, for sure, the course,
Yeah.
the English course, because having you as a teacher, I think it's very important because you're very you listen to us, and we can just talk about whatever we want, and that's very important. And of course, uh, listen series and TV and radio as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I read a lot of articles in English, and I have my daily newsletter in English, and that's a very colloquial
Yeah.
English.
Good. Yeah.
So that really helps me to be more familiar with that kind of English, that really usual English.
Yeah. Do you know what the name of that daily newsletter is? Is it something that
Sure.
I could share with
Yeah.
in the lesson because other people might like to listen to that or read that as
Yeah.
well?
I have three of them. I have the usual New York Times Daily Brief.
Yeah.
I have the Skim.
Mm-hmm.
The Skim is really great. I love the tone.
Yeah.
And there's the last one. It's called Morning Brew.
Oh, Morning Brew. Great. Well, I will make
Yeah,
sure to include links to all three of those in
yeah,
the
they
lesson.
are just great. And you get just a brief of what you need for the day. So, and yeah, that's not the usual news you can just heard in on Fox News or CNN.
Yeah, I like that. Those are great recommendations. So my last question is, a lot of people who are in the Confident English community, a lot of people who will watch this interview might be feeling really frustrated in English. They might be struggling and think that it's just impossible for them to ever become more confident or fluent or feel comfortable in English. What advice do you have for someone like that?
I think the biggest advice I may have is to not judge you,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that you are your best enemy in English and in every field you can have. And it's your ego that says you that you're not good enough and that you should shut up and don't speak English. And that's not true.
Right. I love that. I think you're absolutely right. We're so often we're the biggest judge of ourselves, and we make it so difficult on ourselves to make progress. So I love that.
Yeah, and to be perfect, and you don't have to be perfect, actually.
Funny. Well, Anne-Laure, thank you so much for doing the interview with me today. I really appreciate it. And